This is not the message that I planned to bring this morning. I had a great message on Zacchaeus, Luke chapter 19. Little fella climbed up in a tree to see Jesus. Oh, it was going to be a good sermon. And then David Townsend ruined it. He chose these songs about happiness and rejoicing. And so the message that you are going to hear this morning from Luke chapter 5, if it's a flop, it's David's fault. Not this David, the other David. When he gave me those songs about rejoicing, I changed my mind, I changed my heart about the message to bring. Because Jesus had just had a dinner party with Levi, a publican, a tax collector, hated by his own Jewish people. And the religious elite did not like Jesus having this party with Levi, Matthew as we call him, and they criticized Jesus because he dared to be a friend to those whom they considered sinners. Religious people have a difficult time changing anything. If you don't believe that, make some kind of change in the church. We ain't never done it that way before. The church is very slow about accepting any kind of change. That is not true for just us. It's always true for strong religious people. Even the religious leaders of Jesus' day, they just couldn't handle change. They became what we would call institutionalized. You may be institutionalized, and if you don't want anything too different, anything change. A prisoner sitting in his cell, year after year after year, he has counted the blocks, he's counted the ceiling tiles, he's been there for years. It's a way of life for him now. He is released from prison. What happens to him within a matter of weeks or months is he's back again. Statistics prove to us that those who spend many, many years in a prison usually will come back again and again and again. Institutionalized. They hate the walls, but they can't handle real life without the walls. And so they go back to what for them is safe, for what to them is a way of life. Religious people can be that way. We have our own way of doing it. We've done it that way for so long, we can't function well outside of what we're used to, the way it used to be. So it was in Jesus' day. Here is what they say to Jesus in Luke chapter 5, verse 33, right after Levi's dinner party. And they, the religious leaders, and they said to him, the disciples of John, John the Baptizer, the disciples of John fast often and offer prayers. So do the disciples of the Pharisees. But your disciples eat and drink. And Jesus said to them, can you make wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. Fasting or feasting. We don't do much in the way of our Baptistic religious life of fasting. Not really. Maybe you might be trying to lose some weight or counting your calories, and you may fast. But as a religious exercise, we do not do much fasting. June and I knew a man in North Carolina when we were in seminary. We worked in a bookstore and got to know our own customers very well. There was one man, I don't know, he wasn't exactly an Islam person, but he was tied into some kind of Mideastern religion. And it was a religion in which they fasted very often. When he fasted, he could not eat all day long. He could not smoke all day long. He could not have coffee all day long. But he was a good friend of June and I. He invited us to his house one time. He lived with his mother, even though he was in his 40s. We were in his home, and as the meal was being prepared by Mother, he sat at a windowsill looking out the window facing west. He sat there. On the windowsill was a package of cigarettes and a lighter. Beside him on a table was an empty cup for the coffee. He sat there looking out that window. I promise you, we saw this. Waiting for the sun to go down. He sat there, and as the sun went down, he reached for the cigarettes and held his coffee up for Mother to fill. Fasting can just be a kind of perfunctory thing that you go through. It's just a routine. If he was really fasting in his heart for spiritual reasons, he wouldn't have been sitting looking out the west window just waiting for that sun to go down. He couldn't wait for the fast to end. Many people are like that. In Jesus' day, the Pharisees prayed 3 times every day. Noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m. Every single day. No matter what you do, you stop doing it and you had your prayer. And it became rote. It became everyday stuff. It became habit. It became very perfunctory. They also fasted on Mondays and Thursdays until sundown. And it became just a ritual that they went through. Just a ritual. Fasting in the spiritual sense of the New Testament means you are so caught up and overcome with the experience of religion that you are going through that you forget about food, you put it aside, and you devote yourself completely to that religious activity. It's not just a routine. It's not just a habit. It's not just something you go through because it's time to do it. It's something you really feel. And what the dedicated Jews fasted for as they prayed for the coming of the Messiah. And Jesus is saying to these religious leaders who are criticizing him and his disciples for eating and drinking. He says to them, look, you're praying for the Messiah to come. You're fasting for the Messiah to come. I am here. I'm here now. I'm the bridegroom. You don't fast at a wedding party when the bridegroom is there. But he said there's coming a day when the bridegroom will be taken away. He's referring to his death on the cross. There's coming a day when the bridegroom will be gone. You will fast and mourn then. Ah, but I will come again, and your fasting will be turned to great joy. Our religion ought to be one of great joy and happiness and peace within. He gave us that joy. And He wants us to experience it every day that we live. We don't go through just routines. We don't just go through by habit or rote. But we are filled with a joy that comes from the presence of Christ Himself. Then He gives 3 stories. He told them a parable, actually 3 parables. No one tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old. I remember the word called sanforized. Sanforized meant when you bought a garment, it was pre-shrunk. But not all garments that you buy are pre-shrunk. And so you've got these holes in your blue jeans. You've got these holes in your dress. And you decide you're going to patch that hole. So you take a brand new piece of garment. You cut a little patch and put it on. And the first time you wash it, there's going to be shrinking. And it will tear away and the hole will reappear. Just as though it never was patched. Jesus is saying, you can't just patch religion. You can't just patch up your life. You have got to have a whole new life. Throw away the holy jeans and buy a new set of beautiful jeans. Don't just try to patch it up. It will not work. And so many people that I know of just try to patch up their religion. They join another church, or they become somehow involved in another religious movement, and they're just patching up their lives. Jesus came not to patch our lives, but to give us new life, new hope, a new beginning from the inside out. Don't just replace the old, but actually give it something brand new, a whole new life. Jesus did not die on the cross that I might just, in my conversion experience, just change my ways. He died on the cross that I could die with Him, my sins could die with Him, and I could be born again, born anew, born from above, and filled with the Spirit of God to have a whole new life. New garments. He gives another parable. No one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the new wine will burst the skins and it will be spilled and the skins will be destroyed. They would take a goat. After the goat had died or had been slaughtered, they would skin that goat. And they would tie off the legs of that goat of the skin. And that was elastic. It was vibrant. It was alive yet. It was still like, it had stretch to it. It had life in it, and you could pour the grape juice in. I don't say a whole lot about it, and I don't want you to try this experiment, but my daddy used to ferment wine. We had rows and rows of grapes where we grew up. Halfway between Pittsburgh and Lake Erie is grape crop. You had green grapes, white grapes, purple grapes, red grapes. Take them into the cellar, and he had a press. He would press the juice, the good juice. He put it into bottles. And on top of the bottle, he took a child's balloon, a balloon, and he would put that on the neck of it with a rubber band around it, and let it sit there 2, 3, 4 weeks, and he would watch. And as it fermented, that grape juice released gases. And that gas filled that balloon. It became bigger. Don't try this. Do not do this. But it would get bigger and bigger. Take a little pin, stick a little hole in it. After a few more weeks, the gas would begin to escape and the bloom would shrivel down. And he knew that when it was blown up, it was fermenting, and when it had gone down, the gases had come out, and it was ready. That's what Daddy drank. Not a whole lot, but he did. So did my grandfather. They were German extract. That's what they did. They brewed their own, but they washed it very carefully. Because if you pour those juices of the fruit of the vine into that goat skin that has stretch to it, it'll be fine. As it ferments, the goat skin will expand. But then if you drink that, and you take more new wine and pour into that old wineskin that has lost its elasticity, when it begins to expand with the fermentation, it will split it, it will crack it, and the juices will go out, and you'll lose all your good wine. The gospel of Jesus Christ of joy and happiness and peace and togetherness and holiness with God, that kind of religion cannot just be put into the old religion of do's and don'ts and legalism. No. Jesus is saying to those religious critics of his who are criticizing him for eating and drinking instead of fasting, he's saying to them, you can't take my vibrant, alive, wonderful, joyous kind of religion and stuff it in to the old religion of laws, do's, and don'ts, the old way. It won't work. The gospel does not work in legalism. And so when someone comes to Christ and we see they're happy and they're joyful, don't trim them down. Don't dress them down. Don't criticize them. Let them be happy. Let them have their joy. Let it spread abroad. Don't try to manufacture them into one of our nice little closed people. But be open. Be joyous. New wineskins will be needed for the new wine of the Holy Spirit of God. He gives a last story. But new wine must be put in fresh, new wineskins. And no one after drinking the old wine desires the new, for he says the old is good. Those who were criticizing Jesus saying, our old way was the best way. We don't want your new way. We like our church. We like our denomination. We like our rules. We like the way we do things. We don't want anything new and exciting and different to come into our lives. In 1965, Keith Miller, who died just 4 years ago at age 84, wrote a book called A Taste of New Wine. And in that book, he is trying to tell us what we need is something that will fill us with an effervescent, bubbling kind of happiness inside, and not just the same old, tired and worn out kind of religious life. A taste of new wine. But so many say, I like the old much better. It's on the inside is where it counts. Beautiful tree was growing beside a street. All perfectly shaped, lovely foliage. The bark was beautiful to behold. It had stood there for so many years. And all of a sudden one day, there was no wind. The tree fell down. And they called the people from the town to come and to cut it up and to see what was wrong. Why would this beautiful, luxurious tree just fall down in the street? And they cut it open. They found that on the inside parasites had eaten all of the insides of the trunk and even down into the roots, had destroyed the roots. Oh, my friends, sometimes we're like that. We may look good and sound good and feel good and wow, it's great and we're so religious. And there doesn't have to take a gust of a wind for us to fall down. The parasites, the destruction, the decay is on the inside. When they came to Jesus, said, you can't be happy, you can't be joyous, you can't eat and drink, you have to be strict. You have to be so holy. You have to be so upright. You can't have a joy. And their religion was eaten on the inside. But when Jesus comes into your life, he gives you a new spirit that lives within. And everything is different. Church is different. Family is different. Marriage is different. Workplace is different. Schooling is different. Everything is changing because from the inside out, you're a whole new person. Are you fasting? Are you feasting?